I hereby call this meeting of the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors to order. The following members are participating through electronic and remote means pursuant to the rules previously adopted by this board. Mr. Parker, acknowledge, please.
Alan Parker, attending remotely.
Thank you, sir. My understanding is it's due to a personal family matter that required travel out of the county, correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I direct the clerk to include this statement and any statement of remotely participating board members to be memorialized in the minutes. And if you'll please stand as you're able, I will lead with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Miller. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, watch over all who gather here tonight to conduct the business of our community. Give us the strength and the wisdom to make the best decisions we can for the benefit of all in our community. We especially ask that you heal the sick and that those for whom you have called home, please welcome them into your loving arms. In your name we pray. Amen. Please be seated. Mr. Miller, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Very good. Public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. If comments relate to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of the public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience this evening who wishes to provide public comment? Please come forward. Seeing none, Mr. Dines, do we have anyone online waiting to provide public comment? Very good. Directors, has anyone received correspondence requesting that it be read into the record during public comment? Very good, then I'll now close public comment and move on to reports of members of the board. Mr. Parker, I'm going to have you lead off, sir, since you're remote.
No report, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Morris.
Yes, ma'am. I had a successful meet and greet with Mr. Miller. I think we had a productive evening and it was a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bender.
No report.
Ms. Cleveland.
No report, ma'am.
Thank you, and I have no report tonight. We'll move on. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda, please.
I make a motion we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Report from the county attorney. Mr. Golsky.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just briefly, just wanted to bring to the attention of the board that DEQ has submitted a public notice for environmental permit at Presidential Lakes. It's just a reissuance of a prior permit. I've spoken with Travis Quisenberry from the county, and he doesn't see any issues, but I just wanted to draw to your attention, it's open for public comment for anyone for the month of September.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Golsky? No? Very good. Thank you, sir. All right, we will move on to SA 0904, presentations and reports. Potomac Landing presentation. Mr. Cleveland. Very good. You can step forward, sir, and introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Miller, my name is Bruce Reese. I'm a professional engineer with Legacy Engineering, and I've been helping with this project for several years now. And I also would like to introduce the owner of the property, Lloyd Taylor. He's here if there are any questions for the owner. And the next thing I'll do is apologize for the quality of this PowerPoint presentation. It was done by an engineer, and so it's got an engineer feel to it. So my apologies in advance, and I hope you'll understand as I go through it. I'm just going to try to present the basic facts as we understand. And Mr. Dines, I'm assuming, fantastic. Potomac Landing. This is just a vicinity map. It borders both sides of Potomac Landing Drive, right off Caledon Road. And just to give you an idea roughly where it's at. These are just some facts and figures, and I'm certainly not going to go into them, but for your information, it's an A2 project, single family detached. And here's some of the area tabulations. You'll notice that it's a relatively large parcel and still a fair amount of open space. And then we'll get into the details. From a utility standpoint, we hope to be able to tie to the public water and sewer on site or immediately adjacent. So to tie to the existing publicly maintained sewer system, there will be 2 points of connection to the public system. We will gravity feed to those 2 points, and then it will further gravity to 2 pump stations that already exist before it gets transported to the sewage treatment plant. There is excess capacity in that plant by about 120,000 gallons per day. Water is the main reason we're here this evening. It's a little bit trickier. There is an existing system that accommodates 377 residential units and 7 commercial uses. There are 3 wells that are permitted, only 2 of which are currently operational. The 2 operational wells are 2A and 3, and we'll get into details on those as we go through the presentation. Here's a rough overview of the location of the existing wells, and you can see that Potomac Landing is to the lower right-hand corner of this drawing. So our goals are twofold. There's goals that the Service Authority needs to meet, and there are goals that Potomac Landing Project would like to meet. One of the goals that the Service Authority needs to meet is that there is the need for a new well to supply Fairview Beach and the Potomac Landing, the existing system as it is right now, not the additional 83 lots that are going to be added as part of the new Potomac Landing. We need an operational water system. We need our plans approved so that we can move forward and get this well constructed. So the solution is to drill a new well, and Potomac Landing has offered to provide land for that well and to pay for that well being located in the hopes that there will be a reimbursement agreement with the Service Authority for a portion of the cost for that well. So water systems are a little confusing. There are 2 agencies that you need to get permits through. One's the Virginia Department of Health, and the other one is the Department of Environmental Quality, because you are withdrawing water from an underground source, an aquifer under the ground, and so you need a permit to withdraw that water, especially given that you're in the Eastern Virginia groundwater management area. So the Virginia Department of Health oversees the water quality. They want to make sure that there's an adequate supply for the residences and the businesses. They do not have a fire flow requirement, but your own ordinances have their own fire flow requirement, and we intend to meet those requirements as part of the design of the overall system. And what the health department does is bases the need on a projected use of 300 gallons per day per residential unit. The reality is that most houses use much less than 300 gallons per day. But because the health department is tasked with making sure that no one runs out of water, they require a 300 gallon per day analysis to make sure that that water is available should it be necessary. And there are times when everybody in the morning, or most everybody, turns their showers on at the same time as they're running the dishwasher or whatever they're doing to get breakfast ready. So there is included in this 300 gallons per day an additional peak flow factor that is incorporated in the design of the system and the source of the water. The Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, bases their permit on actual used water. So the water that comes out of this aquifer through the 2 wells that are operating are metered. So they know exactly how much water comes out of each well, and they accommodate making sure that those permit limits are not exceeded because the Service Authority reports those usages to the Department of Environmental Quality. So the 2 existing wells, 2A is working, 3 supplements 2A as needed, but there are concerns about 3A's ability to continue producing water. And those fears are to the point where the Service Authority was hesitant to even do a drawdown test on well 3A for fear that it would fail that test and have to be taken out of service. Right now, the Health Department is okay with the water that's coming out of 3A, but there is fear for that well's long-term viability. The Health Department requires that when you have over 50 units being supplied by a public system, you have to have 2 sources of water. So that's why the second well is critical. And they don't allow one well to produce 99% of the needed water and the other well to produce only 1%. The second supplemental well has to produce at least 20% of the total need. So in a meeting in May with Doug Meyer, who's the district engineer for the Office of Drinking Water, several things were agreed to, and one of which was that 2A could continue as a main source of water for the system. Well 3 could be taken offline when the new well was installed, but could be used in the meantime. And he agreed to meet on site to evaluate the new well site on Potomac Landing. And we also agreed that that well would only need to produce 48 gallons per minute, which is 20% of the total need. Now, it is our hope that that well will produce significantly more water than 48 gallons per minute, but that's all it needed to produce to satisfy the health department. And then on June 28th, Mr. Myers issued a letter stating that he was approving the Potomac Landing well site. A copy of that letter has been made available to the Service Authority. DEQ, you have a permit right now to withdraw water from the Potomac aquifer. The permit was issued in 2017. It expires in 2027. And that permit had limits. 20.6 million gallons annually, 2.8 million gallons per month, and 98,000 gallons per day. And for anybody who would like to go through those calculations, you can't take 98,000 times 365 and come up with the 20.6 million. When you do that multiplication, it's well over 35 million. But DEQ says that's not the way we want this to work. We're okay with a daily withdrawal that's relatively high, but we're not okay with you taking out over an annual basis that much water every day. And so they have reduced that cap to 20.6 million. And again, the permit is based on actual use reported by the Service Authority. So these are the 3 permitted wells, and the reason I'm showing this slide is you'll notice that, and this came right out of the Virginia Department of Health permit and the DEQ permit. Each one of those wells has a latitude and a longitude. And I'll not get into the details on the complexities of modeling groundwater withdrawal, but what the DEQ has done is broken the Eastern Virginia groundwater area into 1-mile grids, and you can withdraw from one grid and be okay, but if you draw from the grid immediately adjacent, it may cause a problem within that grid. So it's important to know exactly where these wells are located, because that's going to play into why you in fact need to do a major modification to your DEQ permit in order to move the well from where it's located at 3A to the point on Potomac Landing. It's more than a mile away, therefore is likely in another grid. The permit also allows, with the submission of a water conservation management plan, which has happened, the Service Authority has submitted this plan and it has been approved by DEQ, that you can increase that maximum annual limit by 10%. So a minor modification allows the addition of a new well, but a major modification is required if the new well is more than 1 mile distant. And to understand the permitting process, a minor modification is a $200 fee. A major modification is a $600 fee. When you go to reapply to have your permit extended beyond 2027, that's a $9,000 fee. So that I'm giving you those numbers to give you an idea of the amount of work that really is involved in the major modification. It's not as significant as it seems. It's simply called a major modification to differentiate it from a minor. But any new well would have required a minor modification if it fit within the current grid. So there are 377 units in Fairview Beach and the existing Potomac Landing. And what you see up there, and I'm not going to go through those numbers, are actual tabulations from the Service Authority. That's the actual usage. The 83 units in Potomac Landing, the new Potomac Landing, add those particular gallons per day. So combined, you see that we have 76,000 daily, 2.3 million monthly, and 21.1 annually. That's after the 83 units of the new Potomac Landing are added, assuming approximately the same usage as the existing houses for the 377 in Fairview Beach. So here's a quick summary, and you can see that without that 10%, which has been approved by DEQ, we would have fallen short of the annual limit. But with that 10%, we have 1.5 million gallons excess. So, Virginia Department of Health is satisfied with the new system and the new well. The DEQ permit limits can be met with a 10% water conservation plan. The DEQ permit modification will be required for the new well. And Potomac Landing has proposed a cost share agreement, which has been forwarded to the previous director. And I understand it may be in the hands of the county attorney, but I'm not sure about that. It's a 2 or 3 page document, relatively simple, and it caps the Service Authority's obligation at the tap fees that would be paid. And if I'm not mistaken, your tap fees are around $19,000 per unit. So that's roughly $1.6 million. And so your requirements would be capped at that limit. So here's what Virginia Real Estate Investment Holdings will do. We'll prepare the plat for the dedication of the well lot. We'll generate the plans and specifications in conformance with VDH. We'll tie to the existing system, and the work will be publicly and competitively bid. Service Authority will reimburse the cost based on a water and sewer connection fee. Payment is within 3 months after you have received a payment from the individual houses as they tap. So, Potomac Landing will pay the availability fees. You will reimburse 3 months after those fees have been paid. The current cost estimate is $2.4 million for the well. And here is a breakdown of those costs. And again, your cap would be whatever 83 residential units times your availability fee would be, which I think is around 1.6 million. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Parker, can I start with you, sir? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. First off, did you guys take a look at the actual? I saw your actual consumption is based on both the current Potomac Landing and the Fairview Beach. Have you looked at more at just the Potomac Landing, what the usage in current Potomac Landing is to project out for these new units? I'm just wondering that because my understanding of Fairview Beach is there's a significant number of homes that are only used seasonally, whereas Potomac Landing's more a year-round residency.
I don't know that the Service Authority breaks their records down by individual houses like that. I'm sure they meter them, but what probably should be understood is the numbers that came back from the Service Authority were roughly 160 gallons per day per residential unit. There have been multiple studies all over the country on systems and what those systems typically require from a water consumption standpoint. So while the health department is saying we want to make sure you've got 300 gallons per day per residential unit, studies have shown that the actual usage is closer to 100 to 120 gallons per day for a residential unit if it's been installed using modern techniques and pipes that don't leak and there aren't issues with leakage and things like that. So the 160, we think, accommodates even the seasonal uses because in the studies that I've seen, that number is probably even less than the 160, closer to 100 to 120.
That's the only question I had, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Morris?
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. It's not necessarily for Mr. Reed. I think Mr. Hoagland can answer this. What's the reason the Potomac Landing well is out of service? Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to verify. Thank you.
Mr. Hoagland, could you please speak into the microphone so that particularly so that anyone watching online and Mr. Parker can hear? Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, what I was looking at on the breakdown, they have listed a service pump, a fire pump, a hydropneumatic pump, plus booster pumps. I was just wondering the reason for, I understand the fire flow pumps and the regular service pumps were a booster pump. So the additional pumps is what I'm wondering for. Is it just for the elevation?
Sir, would you like to answer that?
If I understood what he was saying is that he thinks there are some pumps up on this cost estimate that wouldn't necessarily be needed to meet the minimum standard. So I'm not sure there's a question there. Well, so this system is going to have two pressure zones, a low pressure zone and a high pressure zone. The high pressure zone's up on the hill. And so we have a storage tank up there that's going to do two things. It's going to maintain pressure in the high pressure system, but it's also going to be used for fire flow. So how that water gets up there, it can either come from the well on site or it can come from well 2A down at Fairview Beach. The systems will be interchangeable, interconnected, and reversible. I hope that makes
Mr.
sense.
Morris? Did you get an answer for your original question? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Bender?
I just want a little clarification on the tap fee reimbursement. So I'm going to give the number 19,000. So it would be a percentage, maybe 100% reimbursement for the tap fee? I just needed clarification on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe, Ms. Cleveland, you've previously disqualified yourself in the matter, so I won't ask for questions. Thank you, ma'am. I don't have any questions. Mr. Miller, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think that the important thing is that this is their first presentation to us. We do know, obviously, the developer has some time constraints or some interest in this being expedited. This is one of two components to the development process, and that is they want to secure some kind of arrangement with the service authority, which is this step. And so what I will do is for you, for the board, is we'll get with our engineering folks, which we've had some discussions already, and then we'll put our analysis to it, and we'll continue the discussions, and then we'll hopefully get this back. I would like to say we could get it back to the 21st, but that's not something that I want to tell you, for sure. But we know that it needs to be expedited. I think the other thing that does need to be pointed out is that they also they also have the part of the development review process through our community development department. And they are somewhat enmeshed together, because I think that these folks want some kind of an answer about how this will develop, this particular set of 83 units. So we will go to work on it. Travis Quesenberry has been a part of the discussions, and I just really appreciate you guys coming tonight and presenting this. It's a good starting point. As I said on our phone call, I really certainly apologize that, we've had a couple months go by that, to get to this point. Because I think if you were under an impression that maybe this thing was being considered, but unfortunately it just wasn't to the point that we are here now. So thank you.
Mr. Miller, thank you. And I can tell you, our experience with the Service Authority has been outstanding. And I know Mr. Weekly got busy, and that happens, and we understand that, but anything we can do to expedite this would be most appreciated.
Thank you very much for your patience, and thank you all for coming out this evening. All right. General Manager's report, I believe, is next.
Thank you. Some items on here. I will tell you this, that effective tomorrow, the 8th, we'll have some service shutoffs. These are the folks that have not paid their bill, that have been delinquent for quite some time. And I think, as I indicated in my note to you all a couple of weeks back, or at least a week or so back, we were planning on doing this on the 30th. And the staff at the Service Authority has been working with the public outreach on this. We felt, we got news on the 30th that the muni billing folks were not going to be prepared to give us a real updated list until like noon of that day, and they were going to go out and start shutting off. So we felt there was a need to back off of that date. And then, of course, last week there was the threat of the storm, and with the long weekend coming up, we just decided to move it to the 8th, which is tomorrow. And I will say this, that our staff has done a great job of working with folks who want to get it done and want to get on a pay plan or get it funded through some way. But, again, it's going to happen tomorrow. So if you get any kind of calls, it'll be happening probably over the course of 2 days, I guess. It usually takes to do this. But, and normally what happens, somebody gets cut off, and then they make payment, and our folks go back out there and turn them back on. So we will, hopefully the sheriff's department won't get the late night calls, because that does happen as well. But our guys and ladies are ready to go and have done a great job. Patty has been trying to whittle this list down as far as she can, and Dean's folks are out there responding. So anyway, you will probably hear some things. We've got some meetings with the Department of Environmental Quality scheduled for the 22nd. And just to kind of a get to know, but also hear about where they are on things with regard to us. I know they're they worked well with the previous general manager, and I'm looking forward to their work as well. We have a raw water study is underway for RK&K. I think we've talked about that in previous meetings. It is a 90-day study. So we just got that purchase order activated last week. So they have an obligation to get us some draft scenarios, draft options in 60 days. And what I'd probably do is work to get that on a future board meeting and a presentation that is being handled by RK&K. We do have a wastewater treatment manager that we have offered that position to, and she is in the middle of going through background checks, and that can take some time. But as soon as we get some good information. We're looking forward to having somebody join us and from the city of Alexandria, so understands a lot about the area of wastewater management, and just a very exciting person that we interviewed. So we're very looking forward to that. On the 21st, I will give you a draft CIP that will show you the projects that we are going to propose to you all. What our plan is then sometime later in October is to go ahead and have the folks from Davenport come and show you the how we are going to fit all this within to the framework of the financial analysis that Davenport did several years ago, and show you the impact and where we need to go as an organization. So that is coming up. And I guess the other thing I would just like to say is that in my time of being here, I've really had the opportunity and the pleasure of getting to know the folks who are operating the system, all the way down from, with Dean Hoagland as our operations superintendent, and the various folks that work for him, and then Patty and Stacy. They're doing a great job, and I know that they have one desire, and that's to constantly serve this community as best they can. And we're doing everything we can to continue to provide the services that our county wants and needs. And so I'm just really wanted to give an appreciation to those folks for what they're doing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parker, do you have any questions for Mr. Miller regarding his report, sir?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Morris?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Bender? Ms. Cleveland?
No questions, ma'am.
Thank you. I just had one question, Mr. Miller. So with regard to the service shutoffs, I'm assuming that all of the affected residences have been notified that will occur tomorrow?
They have been notified either through a general KG alert or through what's on our website, or if we know who they are, we're contacting them, I think. Isn't that correct, Patty? You might want to share with us how the
Come on up to
processes
the
work.
microphone, Patty. Thank you.
The first delinquency notice was sent out on August the 17th, and we sent a second one when we changed the date. And so most of the folks that are delinquent have been notified.
Okay, and then anyone who qualified was offered the opportunity to use whatever remaining funds we have from the state utility relief fund?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have expended within the last month 22,000 of the remaining balance of the CARES funding. And we have also set up payment plans with approximately 45 of our customers, and this has occurred in the last 2 weeks. The customers have gotten the notification, have contacted either Muni Billing or our office, and those payment plans have been established.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Miller. I don't have any other questions. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn to September 21st, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. here in the boardroom.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned to the next regularly scheduled meeting on September 21st, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. That meeting may be held by electronic means and/or remote participation only and may be closed to the public being physically present. All citizens are encouraged to participate in advance or during the meeting by electronic means as provided by the county. We are adjourned.